In this video, we're talking about CSS relative position. Okay, to do that, let's first of all create our HTML basic structure. Then inside our body elements, okay, inside our body elements, let's create two. First of all, we'll create a div and then create a paragraph. Or let me use header one. I'll use header one and div. So let me use div first. Div inside div. Let me give the div let me just write something inside. Let's say hello uh hello, I am div. Okay, let me just use this. Okay, I am div. Okay, then the second thing I'll be using here, making use of header one, hash one. Let me use lowercase hash one, and then let me say okay, let me use blocklet. Okay, I think it's better. Let me see header one. Yes, I am header one. Okay, so this is what I want to do. Now we're talking about relative positioning. Okay, before we proceed to our CSS, let's add our standard CSS, which is it should be link dot slash CSS. Okay, and that's where my CSS file is located. Now I've linked this my HTML to I've linked my standard CSS to this HTML, so it will be rendered in the page. Okay, so what I will now do now, I will say div. Because this I'll be using element selector because I have only two elements. Okay, and there are no similar element that I'm using that will make me to use class or ID. So let me open the curly brace in the declaration block. Then inside this declaration block, let me add some properties to this div. Let me give it a background color. Let me say background color. Let me give it a color that will be very visible. Let me use good lodge. I think this color make more sense. Then let me add width. Let me say 300 pixels. Okay, then the height, let me add in the height 300 by, let me make it 300 by 300 pixels. I think it will look nice. Yeah, it is better this way. Okay, now the next I want to add here now, before I proceed in narration, I would like to give you the difference between as in why relative is different and also important in the CSS styling. Okay, let's assume we use something like margin now. Let's say we say margin top. Let's say margin top. You can see margin top. Okay, just look at what will happen now. Let's give it let me say 40 pixels. Let me see the difference. Yes, this is what I want. Okay, let me make it 50 pixel. Look out, just observe this div box will drop. We give 50 pixel from the edge of this browser, and then it will push this element down so let me say let me put the X. You see that, you see it pushed the element down. Okay, so it's interfering, as a kind of, it's disturbing other elements. Okay, that's where relative comes in, because we don't want it to disturb this element below it. Okay, so let's clear the set. We go back to normal. Okay, so now it have gone back to normal. So to make use of the relative, you see the difference. Let me add let me say to add relative, say position. Inside position, you give it relative position. Okay, now inside this place, now we will not use margin top again. We just use only top. Say top. Let's top property, then put colon, then give it a property of, let's use that same 50 pixels again and see what happened. 50 pixels. You see what happens? The second element is still there. This header one is still there. This one just go over it. It did not push it or shift it from its position. Just okay. I don't think this. Let me reduce this size so you can see it halfway. Let me say 40. You can see that the element will always be there. It will always be there. Okay. But let me make it 45. Let me say 40.3 is not, that is 40.4. How about 40.5? Yeah. Okay. Let me do transparency here. Okay, let me do transparent. Is it really necessary now? I want to make this, should I do transparent now? Just no, don't want this thing to take much time. Transparent, is it possible? I don't think I can use transparency. Yeah, no, it's not possible. It's possible, but it will take more time. So what I'm trying to explain now is that with relative, if you use relative in any element, that element will never disturb the next element. The only thing it will do to go on top of that element, it will never push it away from its position. Like this one now is always halfway. If we return it to, if we return it to, you see, it jumped it. You see, okay, you see that it just jumped it instead of shifting it down. It just jumped the element and moved to the next line. That's what this relative does. Or if the position is almost at exact like 50 pixel now, it will cover it. It will never push it away from its position. So that is how, let me return it to, so you can see it have, let's say 47 pixels. Okay, you can see that, you can see they have, let me make it 46. How about 45.6? Yeah, you can see half of it under here. You can see it. It covered it a little bit. So if we want to shift it more, it will come down. It will never shift this element. But if it's margin, as long as you are adding more value to the pixel, it will push this element down. It will disturb this element from its position. But relative does not push any element away from its position. Rather, it sits on it or it skip it. Okay, so that is it for CSS relative for CSS relative positioning. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.